So today I'm going to do something a little different from everything else I do on this channel and kind of review something. With Kenobi having reached its conclusion, I figured it's a great chance to look back on the series and really my thoughts on the story Kenobi had to tell and the way it chose to tell it. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, Kenobi has reached its conclusion. 6 episodes. It was originally designed to be a movie, and now ultimately ended up being a 6-episode miniseries, and now the entire thing is available for streaming on Disney+. Kenobi had a very interesting story to tell, telling the story of the Jedi struggling to live their lives under the Galactic Empire. And it told it in a very interesting way, focusing on a very familiar character, Obi-Wan Kenobi from the prequels. So instead of just summarizing it, I will just jump right in with my thoughts, but before I begin, I would like to mention that this will obviously contain spoilers for Kenobi, so if you haven't seen Kenobi, I'll leave a link up here to a video all about the methods that the Empire can use to hunt down the Jedi, which is a great video to check out before you actually watch Kenobi. So the story Kenobi had to tell was an interesting one. It's one that we have seen several times before, Jedi hiding out under the Galactic Empire, and the Empire trying to hunt them down. It was told in Rebels, and countless other stories and media from both canon and legends, but Kenobi took a very interesting approach, showing us the life of Obi-Wan Kenobi while living in exile. Well, sort of exile. While many of us assumed that he would be stuck on Tatooine, this does show that he did occasionally leave the planet, and I think there are some hints at the end of the show that he does leave the planet more often following the events of Kenobi. All in all, though, I think the story it had to tell and the way it did it was remarkable. It did a great job showing the sort of life of the Jedi in hiding during this period of time. It showed the peril that they face under the Galactic Empire, and it showed it in a very clear and literal way. Getting to see the Inquisitors doing their job in live action was a real treat, and getting to see the other tools that the Empire used to hunt the Jedi was an interesting bonus. Watching Obi-Wan try to sort of balance being able to help people with being in hiding, really, and trying to avoid sticking his neck out far enough to attract the attention of the Empire was very fascinating to observe. And watching the sort of struggle that he faces, dealing with, reconnecting with what it meant to be a Jedi, having really sat dormant for 10 years. But I know my audience, and you guys know me, the thing that I was really focusing on the most was the politics, and in this case, the Galactic Empire and its military. So how did the Imperial Military function within this show? Well, if any of you saw my video on Fortress Inquisitorius, you'll know the first thing I'm going to mention. We got to see Fortress Inquisitorius on screen in live action, which was pretty cool. It's one of the most interesting and unique Imperial bases, especially in a galaxy full of Imperial bases that seem nearly identical. But we did get a pretty interesting tidbit that seems pretty dumb. The Fortress Inquisitorius is barely guarded. It's guarded by a squadron of TIE fighters and a few battalions of stormtroopers, but when it comes to defending against aerial attacks or anything larger than a few speeders, they're basically completely incapable. No point defense, no shields, no nothing, which struck me as very odd for the Imperial military. Still, when it comes to within the facility, we do see them running a fairly tight ship, hundreds of stormtroopers, and basically what you'd expect, an entire corps of officers to manage the whole deal, a fully stocked and manned Imperial base. The other elements of the Imperial military that really played a role in the show was the Imperial Navy, particularly a single Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer, which I highly suspect to have been the Devastator, Darth Vader's personal Star Destroyer, at the time of A New Hope. We know that this is an Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer that was sent as the sole Imperial vessel to pursue the path, the sort of Jedi smuggling system set up by what would later become members of the Rebel Alliance, and ended up chasing them to Jabeam, where they had one minor battle. Now, I would like to mention something, and this is something I pointed out on Twitter after the series finale. The model that they used for the Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer was not the best. Something about it just looked a little off to me. Maybe it was a little bit low detail. And I know it was only on screen a few times, but we know they have a great Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer model from Rogue One, and it makes me wonder why they didn't just use that, since they seem keen to use that so many other places. Still, all in all, I think the show really knocked it out of the park. It was a great experience, and it's always nice to see that period of time. I know some people are getting a little tired with the era between episodes 3 and 4, but I really think the 20 years that the Galactic Empire was sort of ascendant and in control leads to a very interesting era in Star Wars history that still really has a lot to be explored. And I do think we're going to get a better look at it in Andor, and I really think it'll be nice to get a look at the political systems in place at the time, which is something that Andor seems poised to show us. But all in all, I'm more than welcoming to any content that takes place in that era. But as I mentioned, I do suspect that Imperial-class Star Destroyer that we see on screen is the Devastator. It's Vader's personal Star Destroyer, and I actually did an entire video covering the history of that ship, and I'll leave a link up here if you'd like to go check that out. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments what you thought of Kenobi. Having seen the whole show, did you like it? Did you dislike it? Do you think I'm way off base by pointing out that the Star Destroyer model is not quite up to snuff? Just let me know your thoughts on the series. And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, leave it down below in the comments as well. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.